thinking about walking. A woman who lost everything in one day and discovered freedom in the ruins. A teacher who answered the deepest question with complete silence. These stories do what meditation instructions can't. While you listen, your racing thoughts settle on their own. Not because you're trying to calm them, because ancient wisdom works on the tired mind in ways effort never will. This works even if you've never meditated, even if your mind never stops, even if every relaxation technique has failed you. The Buddha said, "The mind is difficult to subdue, ever swift, seizing whatever it desires. A tamed mind brings happiness." In the next 3 hours, you'll discover how, not through force or discipline, but through stories that let your exhausted mind finally rest. As these stories unfold, you'll feel the shift happening. Your breathing will deepen. The tension in your body will release. That exhausting mental noise will finally quiet down. Get comfortable now. Let your body settle completely. Take one full breath in and let it go. Your rest begins here. In the mountains of ancient China, there stood a monastery where scholars came to study the deepest teachings of Chan Buddhism. The halls echoed with debates about emptiness, discussions of sutras, analysis of koans that had puzzled monks for centuries. Intelligence was currency here. Quick minds were celebrated. The sharper your understanding, the more respect you commanded. Among these brilliant students lived a young monk, the others called Simple Hui. Not to his face, they weren't cruel, but behind his back, with a mixture of pity and exasperation, that's what they whispered. Simple Hui. Because no matter how the teachers explained the Dharma, no matter how many times the abbot broke down complex ideas into smaller pieces, Hui simply couldn't grasp them. When the master taught about the nature of emptiness, the other monks nodded with comprehension, asked penetrating questions, demonstrated their understanding through eloquent responses. Hui sat in the back, his face twisted in confused concentration, unable to follow even the basic thread of reasoning. When they studied the Heart Sutra, memorizing its verses and unpacking its meaning, the others recited flawlessly after a few repetitions. Hui stumbled over the words, mixed up the lines, forgot what he'd just heard moments before. The abbot watched this young monk struggle for months. He saw Hui's genuine effort, the way he showed up to every teaching session, the sincerity in his eyes, even when understanding eluded him completely. Other teachers suggested perhaps monastic life wasn't Hui's path. Maybe he should return to his village, take up a trade, more suited to his abilities. But something made the abbot pause. One morning, after Hui had failed yet again to grasp a teaching that even the newest students understood easily, the abbot called him aside. "Hui," he said gently, "I'm giving you a different practice." The young monk's face brightened with hope. Perhaps this new practice would finally be something he could understand. "You will sweep the courtyard," the abbot continued. "Every morning at dawn, you will sweep the stones clean. Just this. Nothing more." Hui bowed, accepting this task. He assumed it was temporary, a simple duty, while the abbot figured out how to help him learn the real teachings. But days became weeks, weeks became months, and still, his only instruction remained the same. Sweep the courtyard. The other monks studied increasingly complex texts. Hui swept stones. They sat in profound meditation, cultivating states of deep absorption. Hui swept fallen leaves. They engaged in Dharma combat, testing their understanding against each other's insights. Hui swept away the morning dew. Years passed. The brilliant students came and went, many achieving recognition for their understanding, some leaving to teach at other monasteries, a few giving up when the practice became too demanding. Hui remained, sweeping the same courtyard, following the same simple instruction he'd received a decade ago. 20 years became 30. 30 became 40. The young monks who arrived now had never known a monastery without Hui and his broom. He was simply part of the landscape, the simple one who swept, who couldn't understand the teachings, who had found his place, doing a task anyone could do. But something had happened during those 40 years, something none of the scholars noticed, because they were too busy analyzing, discussing, and debating to see what was right in front of them. We had stopped trying to understand, not from giving up, from something else entirely. When you sweep the same stones for 40 years, thought eventually exhausts itself. There's nothing new to figure out about sweeping. The mind, finding no puzzle to solve, no concept to grasp, no achievement to pursue, simply quiets down. His hands knew exactly how to hold the broom. His body knew the rhythm of the strokes, without his mind directing each movement. The morning air, cool against his skin, the sound of bristles against stone, the way light changed as the sun rose higher. These things required no intellectual understanding. They simply were, and he was simply there with them. Sweep after sweep after sweep. One morning, the abbot, now very old, his hair completely white, stood watching Hui work. The rhythm was perfect, unhurried, complete. Each stroke received the same attention whether anyone was watching or not. No thoughts of finishing quickly. No thoughts of doing it correctly. No thoughts at all. Just sweeping, perfect, and whole unto itself. "We," the abbot called softly. The monk looked up, broom still in hand, present and alert, without the slightest confusion in his eyes. "Tell me," the abbot said, "what is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West?" This was the great koan, the question that had stumped scholars, the test that separated true understanding from intellectual cleverness. The young monks who'd studied for years could offer elaborate answers full of references and reasoning. But Hui, who'd never understood a single teaching, who couldn't grasp even the simplest Dharma talk, Hui simply lifted his broom slightly and smiled. In that gesture, the abbot saw what 40 years of sweeping had accomplished. Hui hadn't learned about no mind from texts or lectures. He'd lived it, breathed it, embodied it through the simple act of sweeping stones until there was no one left who was doing the sweeping. Just sweeping itself, happening perfectly, completely, without the exhausting interference of a mind trying to understand or achieve or become. The old abbot bowed deeply to his student. The other monks, watching this, were stunned. Their master, bowing to simple Hui, the one who'd never grasped a single teaching. But the abbot understood what they didn't, that intellectual understanding and direct experience are entirely different things. One exhausts the mind with endless concepts. The other lets the mind rest in simple presence. The Buddha once taught, "Wonderful, indeed, it is to subdue the mind, so difficult to subdue, ever swift, and seizing whatever it desires. A tamed mind brings happiness." But here's what the scholars miss. You don't tame the mind by thinking about taming the mind. You tame it by giving it something so simple, so complete, so utterly without complexity, that it has nothing left to grasp at, nothing left to figure out, nothing left to do, except finally rest. This is why Hui succeeded where brilliant students failed. They were trying to understand their way to freedom. He was simply sweeping. They filled their minds with concepts about emptiness. He emptied his mind by giving it 40 years of the same simple task. They knew all about meditation, could describe the stages of concentration, could debate the fine points of practice. He just swept, and in that sweeping, found what all their knowledge pointed toward, but couldn't deliver. Your own mind is probably doing right now what those scholar monks spent their lives doing. Trying to figure things out, analyzing, comparing, evaluating, planning. Listening to these words while simultaneously thinking about them, judging whether this story is useful, wondering if you're understanding correctly, checking whether you're relaxing the right way. This is the peculiar trap of human consciousness. We think about our thinking. We watch ourselves experiencing. We evaluate our own evaluations. Right now, part of your mind is probably monitoring how relaxed you are, which immediately makes you less relaxed because monitoring requires mental effort. Another part is judging whether you're getting it, which creates distance from actually experiencing anything directly. Another part is already planning what comes next, which pulls you out of this moment entirely. This recursive loop, thinking about thinking, watching yourself, think about thinking, judging your watching of your thinking consumes enormous energy. It's like running a computer program that does nothing except monitor itself, monitoring itself, monitoring itself, endlessly. No wonder you're exhausted. The thinking mind trying to solve the problem of thinking is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. More thinking doesn't quiet thinking. It just creates more to think about. More analysis doesn't stop analysis. It becomes another thing to analyze. More techniques for calming the mind just give the mind more techniques to worry about doing correctly. But here's what Hui discovered. Through 4 decades of sweeping, your body already knows how to rest. It doesn't need instructions or understanding or techniques. When you give it something simple enough, concrete enough, immediate enough, the thinking mind has nothing to grab onto. It can't analyze sweeping for 40 years because there's nothing there to analyze. It can't figure out the right way to sweep because there's just sweeping happening, complete in itself. This isn't about becoming simple or giving up intelligence. It's about recognizing that intellectual understanding and direct experience are different paths, and sometimes the smartest thing the thinking mind can do is stop trying to think its way to peace. Those brilliant scholar monks knew everything about Buddhism. They could explain emptiness, discuss non-attachment, describe meditation states with precision. But knowing about rest and actually resting are not the same thing. Knowing about freedom and being free are entirely different. And sometimes, perhaps most times, the direct path is the one that bypasses knowing altogether. When your mind stops trying to figure everything out, something remarkable happens. Not dramatic, not special, just the quiet recognition that you don't need to understand everything to experience it fully. You don't need to analyze peace to feel it. You don't need to master rest to rest. You just need to stop making it complicated. Hui spent 40 years with a broom, and in that simplicity, found what decades of complex study couldn't deliver. What's your broom? What's the simple, immediate, utterly non-complex thing your thinking mind has been overlooking because it seems too ordinary to matter? Maybe it's the rhythm of your breathing right now. Maybe it's the weight of your body against whatever surface holds you. Maybe it's the simple fact of being here, listening, without needing to understand or achieve or become anything different than what you already are. The brilliant students thought Hui was too simple to understand the teachings. They were wrong. He was too simple for the teachings to complicate. And in that simplicity, in that 40-year sweep of stones with no one there trying to get somewhere, he found what all their complexity was pointing toward, but could never quite reach. But what if even the body's wisdom seems distant? What if you can't feel that natural intelligence that knows how to rest without being taught? The next story shows what happens when we lose touch with the automatic grace we were born with, and what that loss reveals about the thinking mind's interference. There once lived a centipede who moved through the forest floor with effortless grace. 100 legs working in perfect harmony, flowing like water over rocks and roots and fallen branches. She never stumbled, never hesitated, never needed to think about which leg should move when or how to coordinate the intricate dance of all those tiny feet. Her body simply knew. One morning, as she crossed a sun-dappled path, a toad sitting on a nearby stone watched her move with obvious fascination. The toad had 4 legs, simple enough to manage, but watching this creature with so many limbs moving in flawless coordination filled him with curious wonder. "Excuse me," the toad called out. "I hope you don't mind my asking, but I've been watching you move, and I'm absolutely amazed. How on earth do you manage all those legs? Which one do you move first? How do you keep track of them all? How do you know which leg goes forward when?" The centipede stopped. For the first time in her life, she considered the question. How did she manage all those legs? Which one did move first? She'd never thought about it before. She looked down at her many feet, suddenly aware of each individual leg in a way she'd never been before. "All right," she thought, "let me figure this out. I'll start with the front right leg, or should it be the front left? And then, which one comes next? The one directly behind it, or the one on the opposite side?" She tried to move forward, but now her mind was directing traffic. Front right leg. Go. Wait. Now which one? The second right? The first left? She attempted a step, and several legs moved at once, while others remained frozen, creating an awkward stumble. She tried again, thinking harder, concentrating more intensely on the sequence. If the front right goes first, then logically the second left should follow, then the third right, creating a diagonal wave pattern, or is it supposed to be sequential pairs? Her legs tangled together. She lost her balance and collapsed in a confused heap of limbs. The toad hopped closer, concerned. "Are you all right? I didn't mean to cause any trouble." The centipede lay there, utterly paralyzed, her mind racing through calculations and sequences and patterns, trying desperately to figure out consciously what her body had done automatically for her entire life. The more she thought about it, the more impossible it seemed. 100 legs. How had she ever managed them all? This is what happens when thinking enters what the body already knows how to do. Your body performs miracles every moment without asking your mind for permission or instructions. Your heart beats roughly 100,000 times each day, adjusting its rhythm without you deciding when to speed up or slow down. Your lungs breathe in, perfect response to your oxygen needs. None of this requires your thinking mind's involvement. In fact, your thinking mind couldn't manage these processes even if you wanted it to. The complexity would overwhelm you instantly, just like it overwhelmed the centipede. But we do this all the time with things the body knows how to do naturally. A musician practices until her fingers know exactly where to go, the music flowing through her hands without conscious thought. Then she performs in front of an audience, and suddenly she's thinking about each note, watching her fingers, evaluating her playing, and the natural flow stutters and breaks. Have you ever been walking downstairs and suddenly become conscious of the process? You start thinking about each step, where to place your foot, how to shift your weight, and immediately you become clumsy, almost stumbling over something you've done thousands of times without any difficulty. This is what your thinking mind does to rest. The Buddha taught this when he said the trained mind and untrained mind operate completely differently. The untrained mind constantly interferes, inserting commentary, demanding control, trying to manage what doesn't need managing. The trained mind knows when to step back and let natural intelligence work. Your body knows how to rest. It's been doing it since before you were born. In the womb, you rested. As an infant, you rested without trying, without techniques, without instructions on how to do it correctly. Rest is as natural to your body as breathing, as heartbeat, as the constant renewal of cells. But then your thinking mind gets involved. Am I relaxing correctly? Should I focus on my breath or body sensations? Is this the right position? Am I falling asleep or staying present? Should I be doing something different? Each question pulls you further from the natural rest your body already knows how to do, inserting mental commentary into an automatic process, creating the same paralysis that stopped the centipede from walking. This isn't about your body being more intelligent than your mind. It's about recognizing that different tasks require different kinds of intelligence. Your thinking mind excels at solving novel problems, planning future actions, analyzing situations that require conscious reasoning. But it's terrible at managing the countless automatic processes your body handles perfectly on its own. When you try to think your way into rest, you're asking the wrong tool to do the job. It's like trying to use a hammer to paint a picture. The tool isn't wrong. It's just not designed for that particular task. The centipede couldn't walk because she was using analytical intelligence to manage something that required somatic intelligence, the wisdom embedded in the body itself, the knowing that exists without thought, without words, without conscious understanding. You have this same wisdom. It's there in every breath you're taking right now, without deciding to breathe. It's there in your heartbeat continuing steadily, without your permission. It's there in the way your body maintains its temperature, repairs its injuries, knows when it needs food or water. All of this happening perfectly, constantly, without your thinking mind's involvement. Rest works the same way. When you stop asking your thinking mind to manage it, when you stop trying to figure out the right way to do it, when you stop analyzing whether you're doing it correctly, your body remembers what it's always known. How to let go, how to release, how to simply be without working at being. The toad's innocent question paralyzed the centipede, not because the question was wrong, but because it pulled conscious attention into a process that works best without conscious attention. Your own mind does this constantly, pulling conscious attention into automatic processes, inserting analysis into natural flow, demanding understanding where simple doing is enough. But here's what the story reveals. The centipede wasn't actually broken when she couldn't walk. Her legs still worked perfectly. Her body still knew exactly what to do. The only thing blocking her natural movement was the thinking mind's insistence on understanding and controlling what had always worked fine without understanding or control. The moment she stopped trying to figure it out, the moment she let her analytical mind step back and her body's intelligence take over again, she walked. Not because she learned anything new, not because she finally understood the correct sequence, but because she stopped interfering with what her body already knew. Your tired mind isn't tired because something is wrong with you. It's tired because it's been trying to consciously manage things that work better without conscious management. It's been trying to think its way into states that emerge naturally when thinking stops trying so hard. Right now, your body knows how to rest. It's already doing it in 1,000 ways. Your breathing deepening slightly, your muscles releasing tension you didn't know you were holding, your nervous system shifting toward calm. None of this requires your thinking mind's help. In fact, the more your thinking mind tries to help, the more it interferes with what's already happening naturally. Sometimes the deepest truths require no words at all. No explanation, no analysis, no verbal understanding, just direct recognition that bypasses thought entirely. The next story takes us to a moment when the Buddha himself taught this way, pointing to truth through silence rather than speech, showing that what cannot be said is sometimes more powerful than anything words could convey. On Vulture Peak, a mountain sacred to seekers of truth, a vast assembly gathered to hear the Buddha teach. Thousands of monks sat in neat rows, their robes the color of earth and saffron, their faces turned upward with anticipation. Lay followers crowded the outer edges, hoping to catch even a few words of wisdom from the awakened one. The air itself seemed to wait, holding its breath for what would surely be a profound discourse on the nature of reality, the path to liberation, the deepest truths of existence. These gatherings were known across the land. The Buddha's teachings could last hours, sometimes days, as he carefully unpacked the Dharma through stories, analogies, logical reasoning, and patient explanation. His words had the power to transform lives, to shift perspectives so completely that people walked away, seeing the world with entirely new eyes. Today's crowd had traveled from distant villages, some for many days, to hear whatever teaching he would offer. The Buddha took his seat on the teaching platform. The assembly fell silent. 10,000 pairs of eyes watching, 10,000 minds ready to receive his words, to analyze them, to memorize them, to carry them back to their communities and share what they had learned. Scribes prepared to record every syllable. Senior disciples leaned forward, ready to ask clarifying questions if needed. The newest students sat with notebooks, determined not to miss a single insight. The Buddha reached down beside his seat and picked up a single white lotus flower. He held it up, turning it slowly so the assembly could see it from all angles. The pure white petals, the golden center, the green stem still dripping with water from the pond where it had been growing just hours before. Then he simply sat there, holding the flower, saying nothing. The silence stretched. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. The assembly began to shift uncomfortably. Surely the teaching would begin soon. Surely this was just a dramatic pause before he launched into an explanation of what the flower represented. Purity, perhaps, or the unfolding of enlightenment, or the beauty that grows from muddy water. But the Buddha remained silent, simply holding the flower, his eyes soft and present, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. 5 minutes passed. 10. The crowd grew restless. What did this mean? Was this a test? A riddle they were supposed to solve? Minds raced, trying to figure it out, trying to extract meaning from the silence, trying to understand what the flower was meant to teach them. Some students thought it must be about impermanence. The flower would wilt and die, showing the transient nature of all things. Others thought it represented Buddha nature, the inherent purity that exists in all beings, despite growing in the mud of suffering. Still, others constructed elaborate interpretations, involving the petals as the eightfold path, or the stem as the connection between earth and enlightenment. Their minds worked furiously, building concepts, creating frameworks, trying to translate the simple gesture into words they could understand, analyze, and remember. And then, in the midst of all this mental activity, one person in the vast assembly smiled. Mahakashyapa, sitting quietly in the third row, suddenly smiled, not the smile of someone who has figured out the answer to a puzzle, but the smile of someone who has seen something directly, without the interference of thought, without the need for explanation. The Buddha saw this smile and nodded. I have the treasure of the true Dharma eye, the marvelous mind of nirvana, the true form without form, the subtle gateway of the Dharma. It does not depend on words and letters, but is a special transmission outside the scriptures. This I entrust to Mahakashyapa. The assembly was stunned. What had just happened? What had Mahakashyapa understood? that they had missed. They had all seen the same flower, heard the same silence. What was there to get? But that was exactly the point. There was nothing to get, nothing to figure out, nothing to translate into concepts and carry away in the mind's filing cabinet of spiritual knowledge. Mahakashyapa hadn't understood the flower. He had simply seen it, directly, completely, without his thinking mind inserting itself between his awareness and the actual living presence of white petals, golden center, green stem. While everyone else was busy trying to understand what the flower meant, Mahakashyapa had simply met the flower as it was, and in that direct meeting, without words, without concepts, without the exhausting work of interpretation, he touched what the Buddha was pointing toward. This is what happens when we stop trying to translate everything into language. Right now, you're hearing these words, and your mind is probably doing what the assembly did, trying to understand, trying to figure out the lesson, trying to extract meaning that you can grasp and hold on to. This isn't wrong. Words have their place, but they can also become a barrier between you and direct experience. Think about the last time you saw something truly beautiful. A sunset maybe, or a child's face lit up with joy, or a moment of unexpected grace. What did your mind do? Probably started narrating immediately. "That's beautiful," it said, already one step removed from actually seeing. Then perhaps it compared this sunset to other sunsets you've seen, or it started planning how to describe it to someone else, or it pulled out your phone to take a picture, which meant you were now looking at the sunset through a screen rather than directly. Each of these moves, labeling, comparing, narrating, capturing, pulls you out of direct experience and into thinking about experience. The thinking isn't bad, but it's also not the same as actually being present with what's right in front of you. The Buddha could have given a brilliant discourse about the lotus flower. He could have explained its symbolism, connected it to various aspects of the Dharma, created a framework for understanding that would have given the assembly something to study and debate for years. And they would have loved it, because thinking minds love having something to think about, something to analyze, something to understand. But he didn't do that. He just held up the flower, because some truths cannot be spoken, not because they're mysterious or hidden, but because the moment you put them into words, you've already moved away from the direct experience they're pointing toward. There's an intelligence that recognizes truth before thought labels it. You know this intelligence. You use it all the time, without realizing it. A baker's hands know when dough is ready. Not because the baker is thinking about gluten development and hydration ratios, but because 10,000 batches have taught her hands to feel the exact texture, the subtle resistance, the way properly developed dough responds to pressure. She knows through her hands, directly, before any words form in her mind. A musician's fingers find the right notes without conscious direction. Her hands have practiced so many times that they know the geography of the instrument better than her thinking mind could ever map it. The music flows through her fingers, not because she's thinking about which key to press next, but because her body has learned the language of melody and her hands speak it fluently. A woodworker feels how the grain wants to be cut. His hands recognize the wood's resistance, know when to apply more pressure and when to ease back, sense the difference between working with the material and fighting against it, all without verbal thought, all through direct physical knowing. This is the same kind of knowing Mahakashyapa had when he saw the flower. Not conceptual understanding that can be explained in words, but direct recognition that bypasses language entirely. Your hands have been practicing this all along. Every time you've caught something without thinking about it, every time you've adjusted your balance automatically, every time you've known something through physical sensation rather than mental analysis, that's your body's intelligence working without words. The Buddha taught, when words cease and there is no speech, this is called the entrance to the gate of Dharma illumination. Not because words are bad or wrong, but because reality itself doesn't exist in language. Language is a tool for pointing, describing, communicating, immensely useful, but fundamentally separate from what it describes. You can read 100 descriptions of what an apple tastes like, memorize elaborate vocabulary about its sweetness, tartness, and texture, but none of those words are the actual experience of biting into an apple. The experience itself exists outside language. It's direct, immediate, and complete, without any words at all. This matters for your tired mind because language is exhausting. Every word requires mental processing. Every sentence needs to be parsed, understood, related to previous sentences, fit into existing frameworks of meaning. Every explanation demands that you follow along. Check your understanding. Make sure you're getting it right. Even these words right now are asking your mind to work, to process, to comprehend. But the flower doesn't ask anything. It just is. White petals, golden center, green stem, meeting it directly, without words, without interpretation, without the work of understanding. Your mind can finally rest. This is what your body knows, that your thinking mind keeps forgetting. Your body lives in direct experience constantly. It feels temperature without naming it hot or cold. It senses tension and release without labeling them. It knows tiredness and energy as direct physical reality, not as concepts to be understood. A potter's hands know when clay has the right moisture, not because they've memorized a formula, but because they've touched countless pieces of clay and can feel the difference directly. A gardener's fingers know how deep to plant a seed, not from measuring but from an embodied sense of rightness that comes from years of handling soil and watching what grows. A cook's hands know when bread dough has been kneaded enough, not from counting folds, but from the way the dough responds under their palms. A knowing that exists in the hands themselves, before language, before thought. Every skilled movement is meditation without trying. When your hands are doing something they know how to do, really know, in the body rather than in the mind, thought becomes unnecessary. The dancer who has practiced the same sequence 1,000 times doesn't think, now right foot, now turn, now extend. The body simply dances, and the thinking mind can rest. The typist who has typed for decades doesn't hunt for each letter. The fingers find the keys faster than conscious thought could direct them. This is your body practicing no mind every time it performs a familiar skill. Not something you need to learn or achieve, something you already do whenever you trust your physical intelligence over your analytical mind. But here's what happens. You watch yourself. The baker second guesses her hands, thinking maybe she should check the recipe again. The musician becomes conscious of her fingering and suddenly stumbles over notes she's played perfectly 1,000 times. The woodworker starts analyzing his technique and loses the intuitive feel that guided him. When you watch yourself doing something, you split your attention. Part of you is doing the thing, and part of you is monitoring the doing, evaluating it, judging it, checking if it's being done correctly. This is what happened to the centipede when the toad asked about her legs. This is what happens to your rest when your thinking mind starts managing it. The assembly on Vulture Peak was watching, analyzing, trying to understand, and they missed what was right in front of them. Mahakashyapa wasn't trying to understand. He was simply present, directly meeting the flower without the interference of interpretation, without the exhausting work of turning experience into explanation. Your hands already know this. Every time they perform a familiar task without your conscious direction, they're showing you how to be present without the interference of thought. The question isn't how to learn this. You already know it. The question is how to stop watching yourself long enough to let this natural intelligence work. Sometimes we lose this natural knowing by becoming too conscious of ourselves, too aware of being watched by others or by our own inner observer. And when that happens, even the simplest actions become awkward, forced, exhausting. The next story shows exactly this. What happens when the observer's gaze turns something naturally graceful into something impossibly difficult? Sona was born without sight. He entered the world the way all infants do, crying, breathing, hungry for milk. But his eyes never registered the faces leaning over him, never tracked movement across a room, never learned to distinguish his mother's features from shadows on the wall. Darkness was not something he experienced as the absence of light. It was simply the way his world was, complete and whole, requiring no comparison to anything else. As a child, he learned to navigate through sound and touch, and the subtle vibrations that sighted people never notice, because their eyes give them information first. He knew his mother's approach by the particular rhythm of her footsteps, could distinguish his father's breathing from his brother's, felt the warmth of sunlight on his skin without needing to see its source. His world was rich with texture, temperature, sound, and sensation, a complete reality that never felt limited because he'd never known it any other way. When he heard about the Buddha's teaching, something in those words spoke to him. Not because he could see some vision of enlightenment, but because the Dharma described a way of knowing that matched how he already experienced life, directly, through immediate contact, without the interpretations that eyes so often impose. He went to the monastery and asked to become a monk. The other monks exchanged uncertain glances. How could someone who couldn't see learn the Dharma? How would he read the texts, observe the proper forms, navigate the practices that seemed to require sight at every turn? But the Buddha welcomed him without hesitation. The Dharma is not found in texts alone, he said. It's found in direct experience, which Sona already knows intimately. The teaching began not with scrolls or visual demonstrations, but with sound. A senior monk would speak the teachings aloud, slowly, clearly, and Sona would listen with an attention that sighted students rarely achieved. When others' eyes wandered to movements in the room, to the play of light through windows, to the faces of fellow students, Sona's full awareness rested in the words themselves, their meaning, their rhythm, their subtle implications. He learned the Four Noble Truths through feeling them in his own experience. Suffering, he knew it not as a concept, but as the actual sensation of discomfort, frustration,